gentlemen. Hope everyone didn't stay home too late at your respective country parties. But wonderful to be here with you all. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sloan Kendall. I lead global partnerships for Blink. We are a platinum innovation partner of Workday's. Certified integration with them and been in their orbit for some time. We are in the employee experience space, so as you might imagine, this is a topic that is very near and dear to our hearts. And I would imagine, this is a challenge or a journey that many of you in this room are beginning to embark on, have embarked on, or are just looking for new ways to potentially navigate it. And this is really all centered around the simplification of and the unification of the employee experience. And especially for organizations who are frontline centric and are deskless employees as a large composition of their employee base. This is a particularly interesting challenge to navigate. And so we are thrilled to have the opportunity to have a chat with Patrick Fox from easyJet and just going to talk through their organization's journey and embarking on this unification of creating a digital front door for their employee experience. I think what makes this story and your journey so particularly interesting is it's really not just about implementing a single piece of tech or a silver bullet in a business process. It is really about a cultural shift, and it is very much a journey in nature. So, Patrick, thank you so much for joining. We're so excited to have this chat. The best place to start is maybe giving the audience a little bit of context to your day-to-day role and how you fit into the easyJet organization.
Yeah, of course. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. My name's Patrick. I'm the internal communications content and channels lead at easyJet. I've been at easyJet for about 14 months now, but in easyJet terms that is about 10 years, so I feel like an absolute veteran already. We, as an internal comms team, we sit within the people function. But like many internal communications team, it kind of doesn't really matter where you sit in the organisation. It's the kind of the relationships that you build. And easyJet is a big relationship business. We are 19,500 people strong. 15,000 of those are pilots, cabin crew, engineers that safely carry 250,000 customers through our network across Europe every day. We're the largest airline in the UK and one of the largest in Europe. I'm sure many of you have travelled to Barcelona on an easyJet flight, or if not, you've travelled with easyJet before and you've been welcomed with the warm smile and the great service that comes with flying with easyJet.
Amazing. And maybe you can speak a little bit about, too, obviously knowing that comms can look probably very different even on just a day-to-day basis, and how you go about intersecting with your HR, IT, operations counterparts. I'd be interested to explain to the group how that operates specifically for you all.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's very much a relationships business, and again, it'll be similar to the experiences that many of you have. I think coming into easyJet as a newbie, I had to very quickly forge those relationships. This particular project was something that actually I pretty much knew I was walking into. We were a workplace user, we knew the workplace was closing, and we needed to find an alternative channel for many of our remote frontline colleagues. But very much it's a case of getting time with people, building those relationships, and just continuing to spend time with them, really.
Yeah. And maybe can you speak to a little bit about how you think about communications living as kind of a part of the overall kind of employee digital experience? And how do you think about that as kind of the bedrock to the way that people find information, or generally what their digital experience is like?
Yeah, I mean it's an integral part of it. Let's face it, I'll be very honest, as an internal comms person, employees do not come to our intranet because they're interested in corporate news. Nobody cares, I think is the mantra that I'm quite happy to go with. But they go to intranets and they go to the digital workplace to find information or to do something. And we dangle the carrot of simplification and ease. We'll get people to the place where they can find that information or complete that task they need to do. And while they're there, we're going to hit them with some good content that we hope that kind of moves an employee from A to B.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the trigger point of the for folks who have maybe historically used Workplace or are familiar with digital engagement tools like Workplace. It was sunsetting, so Meta made that announcement 18 months ago now that it would no longer support the platform, and it was going to move to read-only in only a year's time. Could you talk about that as a trigger point, and so you came in knowing that this project was really going to be on your table, but maybe just talk about the start of that news broke, transformation had to begin. Like, what was that experience like, and what kickstarted us from a project workstream perspective from there?
Yeah, so the news broke before I joined easyJet. I was aware, but actually as an incoming easyJet employee, I wasn't aware that they actually used Workplace. Probably should have done my due diligence at the interview stage. Certainly not regretting that now though. For easyJet though, it actually wasn't a bad thing. There was no strategy around the use of Workplace. Certainly no governance. It was very unclear who was responsible for actually owning this platform, the development of the platform, the moderation of the platform. In an organisation like easyJet, you need to make sure that you do moderate a platform. So it gave us an opportunity to actually reset. So I'm eternally grateful to Mark and the Meta family for actually closing it down. I think it's the best decision they've made in our office.
And so news breaks, a new platform, you need to figure out a new way to think about overall digital touch points for a very unique employee base. And knowing that you've had such a mix of obviously heavily unionized, workers' council managed employees, and that bring your own device is going to be that kind of scary four-letter acronym of BYOD is kind of massively in play. How did what was the preparation for that like, and kind of what steps did you all as an organization take to make sure that you're navigating those elements of your business as smoothly as possible?
Yeah, we're a multi-generation organisation. We have cabin crew, of course, who are in late teens, early 20s. We have pilots and we have career corporate. Lots of different people in our organisation. At the same time, we operate in 11 countries across Europe, and those countries all have their own collective bargaining agreements, works councils, unions. Huge challenge for us to overcome. The key part was creating a narrative that they could all buy into, telling a story that could unite the whole organisation. And that story for us was that finding information at easyJet isn't easy.
Yeah. And how did you think about the BYOD portion of it? Thinking about operationalizing tools and access to information on their own device versus one that's a corporate provided device. How did you kind of make a decision on what avenue you wanted to go there? What kind of came into the equation on that front?
Yes, we certainly had to do a mix. So from a corporate perspective, on-call employees and senior management were the only employees with a company-issued device. Our pilots and first officers have corporate devices, as do our cabin managers at that point in time. So we were heavily reliant on the best part of 13,000 people using their own device to access their rosters, to go onto Workday. Those two things are not currently connected. To go onto Workday to access their payslip, and to actually access SharePoint, which was the place for our intranet at the time. Very heavily reliant on that. At the same time, though, we were going through a huge investment case to put iPads in the hands of every single one of our frontline colleagues, and we've actually just completed the rollout this month. So going through the union conversations and making the case for bring your own device on the basis that actually we know that colleagues are already using these things, it was actually made a lot easier by the fact that we were going on this multi-million-pound investment journey to make sure that our people not only had the hardware to do their job, but they also had the software to create that ease.
Yeah, and you described the process of information gathering, both from the workers' councils and from the frontline teams themselves on what would be valuable to them, how what tools do they need, and how do they design almost like their optimal workday. Can you maybe describe a little bit about how you went about that information gathering process, the forums that you collected that data through? I think that would be a helpful context to just how do you go about really informing decisions and kind of the journey through the transformation.
Yeah, of course. This was a journey that for easyJet had actually started about 5 years ago. We have consistently been told by colleagues that it is hard to find information. It's unclear where I need to go. Do I go to DocuNet to view a policy? Do I go over to the connected portal to access an operational link? Where do I get my operational news versus internal comms updates? How does my base manager keep in touch with me? We heard that story loud and clear over the course of 4 or 5 years. So the job was made a lot easier for me actually coming in and having that wealth of data that the internal comms team had already captured. The bit that we hadn't done was make the case for budget and make the connections across the organisation to bring IT, to bring HR, to bring the portfolio and the change team in to that conversation with us.
And that business case process, obviously an arduous journey, I would imagine. And folks would be curious, representation in the room, kind of HR folks? No, okay, great. And IT folks, anyone in the room? Okay, great.
Any internal communication?
Yeah, any comms folks, or folks who have comms as a kind of part of their purview? Excellent, okay, great. So you all can appreciate that, that stakeholder group is really diverse, wide in where their kind of primary focus areas are or what their priorities are. How did those discussions go? I mean, how, when going through kind of like, this is how much it's going to cost us, this is ultimately the efficiency it's going to add to the business, because how did, maybe talk through that process a little bit, or maybe some of the bumps along the way?
Yeah, of course, and Charlie, of course, who's our customer success manager at Link, has had a fun time trying to extract some of those benefits out of us. We really had to fight for the investment. I don't think it would have happened if internal comms hadn't grabbed it by the throat, if I'm honest. The business was very much in the space of just kind of floating through. Everything would be fine when the workplace closes down. We can continue to deal with the fact that information is hard to find. I think the big thing for us was, as internal comms people, we love to tell a story, turning the business case into the best story we've ever told. And we started with the vision that we wanted to create, which was a frontline focused, mobile first employee experience, leading very much with that and calling out some of the benefits around connectivity, being able to find information, being able to complete tasks with ease and simplicity. Starting with that story and then coming back with the why it's really important and bringing forward that frontline experience. Big challenge, of course, we have. We sit in a big orange hangar at Luton Airport. If any of you have ever been to London Luton Airport, you can see the big orange hangar, and we are sitting in what is essentially the ivory tower of easyJet. It's very hard for us to understand the challenges that our frontline teams face, yet we're the ones making the decisions. All of the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis are geared around creating ease and simplicity for someone sitting at a desk, and that's no longer acceptable in an organisation. It's 90% frontline, where they start and end their day with their own device or a company-issued mobile. It has to change.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you called out in part of the experience could be your previous platform, and certainly as you described the way that how things evolved, especially during the pandemic, as you came to understand it when you came into the organization. Having an open forum of communication for many organizations that are, again, heavily unionized and operated by workers' councils. That kind of like open form of communication could be a bit scary, and it sounds like previous platform, because it wasn't moderated primarily, it turned into a bit of a shouting ground. How did you take those learnings of what wasn't optimal and kind of adapt it to the way that you thought about kind of preparing for and working through this transition?
Yeah. Germany had an accepted workplace, as one of the countries we operate in. They had an accepted workplace on the basis of how the data's handled. The unions in France actively encouraged their members to not use workplace. So we were starting from quite a tricky place. Me being quite bright-eyed and bushy-tailed coming into easyJet, felt that actually the best thing to do was to strike up a conversation with our unions as quickly as possible and to start telling the story. We knew that there was some of our unions where we would need to do consultation. Many of our unions were informed, but it was still very important to take them on the journey. So it was very much a case of telling the story through the eyes of their members. We know that our cabin crew find it very difficult to access information, critical information, but also the information they like to see at the same time, the stuff around incentives or the kind of retail offering, the ways that they can increase their earnings and things like that. From a pilot perspective, very important that it's, as you can imagine, and you would hope as well, very straight down the line. They want the information that they need in order to be able to deliver a safe and reliable service. So we had to be able to tell the story through their members' eyes early and easily.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get just a visual for you guys so you can see a little bit about what this experience ultimately looks like. And I think this is actually a good transition to when we think about Workday specifically, obviously, but the reason that we are all here on site this week, thinking about how you make Workday actionable, and knowing that that's such a critical infrastructure from a systems and business process perspective for easyJet teams. What did implementing Workday into the flow of work? What did good look like? What was an optimal outcome to make sure that obviously communications being kind of the central starting point for this transformation, but these operational components also being so critical to the overall kind of digital front door. Workday fitting into that. What did that ultimately look like, and how did you start kind of deciding what entry points were most kind of critical out of the gate?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was something that came up very early on in our requirements capturing, that colleagues needed to be able to quickly book leave, to be able to report absence, to be able to do pay slips. If I'm completely honest, from an easyJet perspective, we haven't fully utilised the Workday experience, and we have a huge program going on at the moment actually where we are relaunching the app into the business. Many of our corporate colleagues use it. I have the notifications when my team wants to book holidays, but that's pretty much all I access it for. I still need to go into web browser mode if I want to access my payslip, which is a bit painful. But all of that is changing. So there's a part of the journey which was actually working with other projects at the same time to really capitalise on some of the changes that they were delivering. And again, talking about the experience that we were trying to create through the lens of ease and simplicity. It's going to be hard for colleagues to download and adopt one app, let alone two. So we have to find a way that really meets the needs for our people who are time poor.
And this kind of relaunch, and for lack of a better description, of Workday and the big project that is happening within the organization. How do you think about leveraging kind of the communication elements of the lounge as you kind of go through that process? Like using it as basically a change management engine. What does that? How will the team kind of utilize that, or maybe even frontline managers utilize that as a tool?
Yeah, so since launching the lounge, and look, we're only scratching the surface with Blink. We've called it the lounge. We've been very fortunate that actually our team have really got behind it. We're at 82% adoption since launching on the 10th of September. We set ourselves a target of 70% by Christmas, so we're doing well, and we're seeing kind of daily users, people are coming back. We're starting to see patterns and trends and the sorts of things that they're accessing. We've used the lounge as a way of helping us to personalise the communications that we're sharing with the business about changes like the Workday update. A lot of the changes that are coming in early are affecting mostly corporate teams. Some of the operational changes are coming in a little bit later, so it's helped us in terms of personalisation. One of the things that we are angling for in 2026 is a deeper integration between Workday and the Lounge Blink. The Blink platform has a native integration with push notifications for a number of the different modules within the Workday state. So it makes it easier for us to actually automate some of those things that we would normally send an email for. So things like where holidays being requested, or if it's performance review time, we want people to set their objectives, being able to actually, with just knowing what time it's going to be published, to be able to send it to specific communities is something that's going to be really powerful. It's going to free up my team's time to be able to focus on things that really matter, moving away from some of those more cyclical and admin tasks.
Yeah. That personalization element being so critical, because I think what we hear often in the work that we're doing with customers is the kind of the inundation of information is almost worse than kind of maybe lack of information. So sifting through kind of what actually matters to your role, your function. If if there's mobility within the organization happening, or transitioning to a new role, or exiting or entering, all kind of the ability to kind of almost set it and forget it as far as what matters to that individual is very critical.
Absolutely, and we use Workday as our source of truth for people data. So run on the kind of basis that if the data is good, everything that kind of comes out of that will be okay. So we use Workday as our version of truth, and then we authenticate with Entra ID. So people profiles within Blink are already populated. So and we segment the audience into groups and communities based on their role and location. So if I'm a pilot in Barcelona, I'll be a member of the Barcelona pilot community from the moment I join. And if I transfer to Malaga, I will automatically move out of that community into my new community. So it's kind of taking some of that admin responsibility away from us and automating it based on a single version of truth.
Awesome. I want to maybe open it to the other systems and other kind of critical infrastructure that is being incorporated into the lounge. Obviously, communications being central, access to systems and business process through Workday, really critical. What else are you incorporating into it to make that kind of holistic kind of digital front door experience complete?
Yeah, so again, going back to the story about it being really hard to find information, our SharePoint intranet is another one of those beasts, and I see many of you shaking when mentioned with SharePoint. We have 126 SharePoint sites sitting underneath our intranet homepage, 9,000 pages of content, and 7 million documents. Very little governance around that again. The kind of central management of our workplace products is fantastic, but actually the intranet has kind of been left to its own devices. People with the best intentions have gone in and created stuff that look pretty, but then they've left the organisation. They haven't, or they've moved into different parts, and the ongoing management of that hasn't been handed over. So we're in a space that's quite chaotic. Again, our crew and our pilots, they really rely on SharePoint to access things, whether it be knowledge and information about booking leave, or rosters, or their incentives, the things that actually help them to increase their earnings. It's all in a chaotic ecosystem of SharePoint sites. So one of the things that we're doing is, my team are very looking forward to this challenge, is assessing every single one of those 126 SharePoint sites, challenging the content that we have there, and actually starting to move it in to the lounge. there are some real benefits of that. We've pushed the Blink team quite hard as part of our onboarding experience. We asked for some very specific and unique features, one of them being offline content. So the idea that I could download a piece of content that I can then view at 37,000 feet. Believe it or not, we are still a low-cost airline. It's much cheaper to do that than it would be to put Wi-Fi on 350 aircraft, although we might be trying to do that. I cannot confirm tonight. So there's a real opportunity for us to make that information easier to find. So if I have a cabin crew member who just wants to quickly get up to speed on the latest incentive or some of our new product range, if they've downloaded it before they've got on board, they can access it on the go while they're in the air, which is all about, for us, all about ease.
Yeah. It's an exciting feature, one that we honestly, I think our product team was really excited by the prospect of, because I think we can appreciate there's so many other organizations, be it manufacturing organizations that have low connectivity on some of their sites. There's a lot of sub-verticals that could benefit from features like that.
Absolutely, we've expanded it now to the internal comms side of things, so you can actually save specific feed posts as well, so sound bites from the cabin services director or flight ops director. You can save and have a listen when you're up in the air. Again, pilots tell us that they really like to download and listen to that information. When they have a bit of time, when the aircraft's on autopilot, sometimes that's actually one of their best opportunities to have a bit of a download of the stuff that they really need to know. So being able to allow them to download a podcast is actually, their director giving a bit of an update on where the business is going, it really helps us from an internal comms perspective. So we've been able to, again, just create some real accessibility and ease from an internal comms perspective as well.
I want to leave a few minutes at the end for questions if folks have them, but we wouldn't be doing justice to Workday Rising if we didn't talk a little bit about AI and how you see that playing a role in the ongoing development of the lounge and advancement of the lounge over time. What do you see as opportunities for kind of AI to layer into that digital front door experience?
I think so for me, I'm very much focused on outcomes. As an internal comms person, it's the only thing that helps us to actually demonstrate that we're adding value. Traditionally, we're the team that doesn't have a budget, so we have to deliver success on a shoestring. For me, it's less about focusing on AI and more focusing on actually what you want to achieve for your workforce. When we brought Blink on board and we started our partnership, we had a very clear plan in terms of what we wanted to achieve over the next 2 to 3 years in that partnership. Phase 1 was very much about communicating. How do we help people to connect with one another locally and across the network and in communities of practice based on their interests? The second part is all about integration. So how do we capitalise on the tools and the projects that we have in our organisation and bring them together to create that single front door into the organisation? So that Workday integration is absolutely going to be happening next year, but we'll also be doing things with ServiceNow to make it easier to raise IT tickets. Again, can you imagine a cabin crew, you've got 5 minutes to tell someone that your device isn't working. It needs to be simple, and it really isn't today. And then the last part to that, so we've done communicate, we're working on integrate. The next part is anticipate. So that's where AI comes in, which is all about actually, when we think about ease and simplicity for our workforce, it's about giving our people what they need based on the data that we have, the things that we know about them, before they even know that they need it. So we start to anticipate their needs based on the cyclical things that happen as an organisation, but also based on their needs and interests. So I know that Blink are really doing some really exciting stuff in terms of agentic AI, improving search, algorithmic feeds, that again based on what the user actually needs at a single point in time. But really for me, the piece will never be about what's the best AI tool to deliver this. It's going to be actually how do we anticipate the needs of our people and what can help us to deliver that. It might not always be AI, it might be something far simpler than that. So I think the thought process of that is to just not pigeonhole ourselves around the the new shiny thing, for sure.